May 10, 2002. Holman Correctional Facility, Alabama. The silence of midnight is broken by the crackle of 1,900 volts coursing through a woman's body. At 12:01 a.m., Linda Block became the first woman executed in Alabama in nearly 45 years. But how did an animal rights activist who once published political magazines and organized charity drives end up on death row for killing a police officer in cold blood? But to understand how Linda ended up there, we have to go back to October 4, 1993. The quiet town of Opelika, Alabama, would soon be marked by a tragedy that would leave its residents reeling for years. The sun has barely begun to dip in the sky, casting long shadows across the parking lot of a Walmart store. What seems like a routine day quickly turned into something darker. Sergeant Roger Lamar Miley Jr., a seasoned officer of the Opelika Police Department, patrols the area. He's a man who has seen his share of danger, who has earned respect in his community. But today, there is something different in the air. A concerned shopper notices a child sitting in a vehicle. She flags down Sergeant Roger Lamar Motley Jr. and voices her concern. Roger approaches the car with professionalism, his hands steady as he asks the driver for his license. The man is George Sibley, Linda Block's common-law husband. A man who has spent his life defying authority. He argues with the officer. His body tense, his voice a low growl. He insists he's not required to show his ID. But Roger doesn't back down. The officer's hand hovers near his gun. A sign of the unease beginning to churn between them. The calm of a casual conversation quickly shifts, and George's unease turns into something far more dangerous. Without warning, George's hand moves. A flash of metal. His gun appears in his hand, aimed directly at Roger. The crack of a gunshot rips through the air. Time seems to slow as the world shatters into chaos. Roger reacts instantly, returning fire, his bullet striking George and forcing him to stagger back, wounded. A moment of hesitation, but not enough to stop the violence. As Roger retreats behind his patrol car, taking cover from the barrage of gunfire, Linda hears the sounds of the shooting from a pay phone nearby. In that moment, something shifts within her. She takes off, running toward the scene, eyes set with a purpose. And then she pulls out her own weapon, a gun that glints with the reflection of the fading daylight. She crouches low, her body coiled with rage. Witnesses describe her stance. Calm, controlled, like a predator closing in on its prey. With one motion she raises the gun and fires. The shot strikes Roger. The force of the bullet rips through his body and he stumbles, gasping for air. But Linda's first shot isn't enough. With ruthless precision she reloads, her finger pressing down once again. This time the bullet finds its mark and strikes Roger in the chest, deep, violent, final. Roger, a man who had given his bulletproof vest to another officer just moments before, collapses, his body crumpling to the pavement as his blood spills into the hard concrete below. But Linda isn't finished. She watches the officer's life drain away, emotionless. The scene is terrifying. Linda stands over the fallen officer, unshaken. George lies nearby, barely conscious from his own wounds. His role in the chaos all but finished. The perpetrators, having accomplished their brutal task, don't run. They don't even hesitate. They simply walk away. Linda slid her gun back into its holster, and she left the scene with George and her son. The body of Sergeant Roger Miley Jr. lies where it fell. Forgotten by them, but burned into the minds of witnesses. In the minutes that follow, a haunting silence falls over the parking lot. The witnesses, too afraid to approach, wait until it's far too late to call for help. The violence that has just unfolded is met with a disturbing indifference. As police arrive, they find a body, a trail of blood, and two perpetrators already long gone. But one thing is certain. Linda and George couldn't outrun the consequences forever. And as they drove away, they think nothing will stop them. They believe they've gotten away with murder. Yet the truth is already on its way. Slow, relentless, and unyielding. What led to this? Desperation, rage, or something darker? Who is Linda Lyon? Born on February 8, 1948 in Orlando, Florida, she was the daughter of Francis Stephen Frank Lyon and Bar Eileen Elizabeth Owen. At just 10 years old, Linda's world shattered when her father passed away from heart failure, leaving a void in her life that would never truly heal. Her strained relationship with her mother, who was both physically and mentally abusive, only deepened the isolation she felt. Linda later married Carl Bloch, a Navy veteran 30 years her senior. The marriage ended in divorce in 1991. Yet, even in this marriage, Linda's anger simmered beneath the surface. Her next relationship with George Sibley would be no different. Sibley, like Linda, was a man running from his past, a fugitive with a penchant for anti-government sentiment. Together, they formed a volatile partnership, bonded by rebellion and violence. Despite her dark side, Linda once led community organizations, advocated for animals, and published a libertarian magazine called Liberatis. But beneath her activism lay a radical anti-government ideology. She believed the U.S. government had no authority over her. In August 1992, just a year before the murder of Sergeant Roger Miley, Linda and George Sibley broke into the apartment of Linda's ex-husband Carl. They tied him to a chair, gagged him, and demanded he stop his efforts to claim their house. They stabbed him once in the chest before abandoning him. Though they were charged with aggravated battery, they disappeared before the sentencing could occur, continuing their flight from the law. By the time October 4, 1993 arrived, Linda and George had been on the run from authorities for some time. They were hiding from Florida's justice system after failing to appear for sentencing on the assault charges against Carl. But their life on the edge was more than just running from the law. It was about control. Linda's motives on that fateful day were shaped by her increasingly paranoid mindset and a fierce, obsessive need to protect her son. Linda later claimed she believed Sergeant Motley intended to harm her child. But the evidence told another story. This was not a mother protecting her child. It was a woman defying authority, ready to kill. She took her time. She reloaded. She killed. And then she walked away. Police swarmed the Walmart parking lot, finding only carnage and silence. Witnesses slowly emerged. Descriptions matched George and Linda. In less than 48 hours, Linda Bloch and George Sibley were tracked down and arrested. Linda remained defiant. No remorse. No apology. During interrogation, she confessed with clinical detachment. "He was going to take my son from me." George, too, admitted to shooting first, but blamed Linda for finishing the job. Linda Bloch's trial began in 1994. Prosecutors presented a bulletproof case. Multiple eyewitnesses. Physical evidence. A confession. Her defense? Self-defense. Her attorneys painted her as a traumatized woman manipulated by an abusive partner, acting out of desperation. But the facts were too strong. Linda had crouched, aimed, reloaded, and executed a wounded police officer. Her belief that U.S. law didn't apply to her only hardened her image. The jury took little time. Linda Bloch was found guilty of capital murder. On December 21, 1994, she was sentenced to death. By 2001, her final days had arrived. The date for her execution was set. She had exhausted all avenues of appeal. On May 10, 2002, after years of defiance, Linda Bloch was strapped to the electric chair at Holman Correctional Facility. She was the first woman executed in Alabama since 1957 and the last to be executed by electric chair without the option of an alternative method. Her final moments were quiet, devoid of any last words, any request for a final meal. At 12:01 a.m., the current surged through her body, and at 12:10 a.m., she was pronounced dead. The true impact of Linda's crime was felt most deeply by the family of Sergeant Roger Miley Jr. His death left a void that could never be filled. For his mother, his colleagues, and his friends, the loss was overwhelming. "He was a good man," said his mother, her voice trembling with grief. "He didn't deserve this. He was just doing his job." These words, soft but filled with the weight of a mother's pain, echoed through the court and beyond. No amount of justice could bring Roger back. No punishment could erase the pain his family felt. Linda Bloch lived a life of contradictions. Activist and killer. Publisher and fugitive. Mother and murderer. Her story reminds us of how easily ideology, paranoia, and violence can spiral out of control. But the final question remains: what drove Linda Block to cross that final line? Was it ideology? Trauma? Or simply rage? Does the death of Linda Block bring closure to the family of Roger Motley? Can any punishment truly balance the scales of justice? We may never know. If this story moved you or made you reflect, share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more in-depth true crime documentaries. And always remember, justice isn't just about punishment. It's about understanding the road that led there.